In this video, I'm going to be sharing 7 pro tips for getting beautiful, sharp wedding ring photos, and also 2 of the most common mistakes that you're going to want to avoid. This video is part of a series on photographing wedding details. Wedding details are one of my favorite parts of the wedding day, and it's important that you know how to photograph beautiful details, not just because it will be attractive to brides who want their details captured in that same beautiful way, but it's also going to help you get more referrals from wedding planners and vendors, and also get your work featured in high-end publications and magazines. In previous videos, we talked about photographing flat lays and also styling wedding invitation suites with 3 behind-the-scenes examples. I'll link those in the description below and also above, and if you haven't seen them already, I definitely recommend checking them out after this video. But this video is fully dedicated to one of my favorite details to style, and that's the wedding rings. So let's dive into tip number 1. So first I wanted to talk about the type of gear that you use for those super close-up ring shots. And preferably you're going to use a macro lens that's dedicated for ring shots. For Nikon, I use the 105mm 2.8 macro, and for Canon users, the best lens for that would be the 100mm 2.8, preferably with image stabilization. But if you're just getting started with building your kit, I will say that I only use this lens for ring shots, so it is kind of a premium lens where if you were just building your kit and are looking to make a purchase and can only afford a couple lenses, this might not be the lens that I recommend purchasing first. So in that case, you could always get started with what's called close-up filters, and this is what I used when I was first building my kit and wanted to invest in other lenses first. And those close-up adapters are basically something that you put on your other lenses. You can put it on something like a 50mm or an 85mm portrait lens, and it helps it get in closer, similar to what you would get with a macro shot. Of course, this is the best, so if you have the budget for it, have been doing it a while and are building your kit, that's what I recommend, is getting a telephoto macro lens. Tips 2 and 3 have to do with your settings. So first, let's talk shutter speed. Since we're using ideally a telephoto lens, any sort of camera shake is going to be amplified. So we want a little bit of a faster shutter speed. I wouldn't go below 1/125th of a second, but ideally you'll be around 1/200th or higher, just to minimize any sort of camera shake so that we get that nice crisp ring shot. Number 3 is to stop down your aperture, specifically to f4 up to f11 or f16 even. And this actually leads into one of the biggest mistakes that I see when it comes to photographing wedding rings. And it's a mistake that I made in the beginning too, and that's thinking that you need to shoot wide open in order to get those creamy backgrounds that we love, especially for the light and airy style. Now, I photograph 95% of the wedding day wide open, so that is definitely my style, but because of the compression of the lens, and also because we're shooting macro where we're getting really close to the subject, we're already going to have really shallow depth of field just from those 2 things. So we can actually stop down our aperture and still get really creamy backgrounds. And it will also help us to get that ring really sharp on the diamond. If we're shooting at a shallower depth of field at 1.4 or even 2.8, it's going to be very, very hard to have that diamond looking sharp. The next tip is to shoot with manual focus. Because that area of focus is so shallow, and also the diamond or the gemstone has reflections and refractions that make it hard for the camera to properly focus with autofocus, this is the one time where on the wedding day we'll want to switch to manual focus. And usually that's just a little switch on the side of your lens. And then, when focusing, when in manual focus, because that area is so shallow, I'll just kind of move slightly back and forth after I get my focus to precisely move the area of focus exactly where I want it to be. And this actually leads into my next tip, which is to, as you're photographing and you lock your focus, take 2 to 3 shots. And the reason for this is after you get it perfectly lined up, you'll notice that the focus will kind of come in and out, and that's because we are naturally moving and breathing. So you'll want to stabilize as much as possible and take a couple shots and then check. And usually one of those will have that tack sharp focus we want. The next tip is to focus on the part of the ring that is closest to the camera. And this is usually the prongs of the diamond. And the reason for this is 2/3 of the focus will fall behind the focus point and only 1/3 will fall to the front. So this means if we're focusing on the point closest to the camera, usually that prong, then 2/3 of the focus will fall backwards, making more of that diamond in tack sharp focus. We talked about focus plane in one of my videos, which I'll link above and also down below, on how to get sharper portraits, where we compared it to a sheet of paper that is parallel to the lens and the camera sensor. So why is this important to keep in mind is because when shooting ring shots, we're working with such a shallow depth of field, it's very easy for things to unintentionally go out of focus. Many times I will prioritize that diamond or engagement ring and I will allow for things to fall out of focus, but we always want it to look intentional. And sometimes we actually want all 3 rings to be in focus. And in this instance, you just want to make sure that they are living on that same plane of focus. And I do this typically by taking a business card or a sheet of paper and just making sure that they are perfectly all lined up. Specifically the parts that are closest to the camera. So by using that sheet of paper or that thing to level them out, you'll get the part that's closest to the camera perfectly aligned so that you get all of them looking crisp and sharp. So now that we've covered the essential things for getting beautiful and sharp ring shots, in the next video in the series, I'm going to be doing a live demonstration of how I capture ring photos, including what I think about when it comes to lighting, background, props, and compositional design. So definitely subscribe so that you can stay in the loop when that video is out, and also for future videos in my wedding photography details series. And also if you have any requests as far as detail videos that you would love to see, I am all ears. I love hearing from you guys, so drop me a comment below and let me know what you would love to see more of. And I'll see you in the next video.